Hi, it's Becky. This is part one of a two-part screencast on creating multiple choice dropdowns in Storyline. One thing we instructional designers try to do is to make the learning environment resemble the target environment as much as possible. Someone in the Articulate community wanted to create practice drop-down test questions that would look like those her students would see on standardized tests they'd be taking. And she wondered if that was possible in Storyline. Like many things in Storyline, the answer was, of course. There are a lot of steps here, so fair warning. Let's take a look at the sample question and then see how it was built. So students are instructed to click in the box to drop down some choices. And you can see that this is a grammatical or language arts question, and students need to make a decision about punctuation. As instructed, I'll make a selection, reread the sentence, and if I don't like my choice, I can click back, make another selection, and keep doing this until I finally have a choice that I like. And then I can click Submit. So how is this created? Here on the timeline, if I hide this shape, you can see that all I have here is a text box where I've typed a sentence, and I've left space for the answer. And when I unhide it, you can see that it's simply a black shape with no border, and I've added an underline, which I did by using Shift plus underscore on the keyboard. And that shows where the choice will go. By the way, the spacing and punctuation, or spacing and positioning, does take some time. So the other thing that I want you to see is that I've named the box here on the timeline. I've called it Selection Box, and this is to make things easier for me as I go along. Next, I created a new state for each of these choices. So here are the 4 grammatical choices. And notice that the names for the states are very similar to the grammatical choices themselves. And this is to make things much easier as the story is being developed. Another step was to create a layer for the drop-down choices. So here's that layer. And to add 4 text boxes. So you can see that there are 4 separate text boxes here for each of the choices. So I created the first one, and I added a hover state to it. And the hover state simply has that kind of silvery formatting around it so that it looks a little bit different. I copied and pasted that text box 3 times, and then edited each of the text boxes so they would have each one would have a separate grammatical choice inside. And I aligned them carefully to each other and also to the box that's on the base layer. Now these need to be turned into clickable drop-downs. And to do that, you have to create triggers. So I clicked on this first one. Notice the grammatical choice here. It's important to pay attention. It has the semicolon, however, and a comma. And I created this trigger that says to change the state of that selection box, remember that's on that base layer, to change the state of the selection box to this state. And notice it's the state that has the semicolon, however, and comma when the user clicks the text box that has the semicolon, however, and comma. And I'll click on OK to close that. Also, another trigger hides this layer when the user clicks on the text box. And to save time, these 2 triggers were copied and pasted onto each of these other text boxes. But being careful to be sure that each of the grammatical choices in the text box is associated with the correct grammatical state on the base layer, as I just demonstrated. And back on the base layer, it was important to do this. When the learner clicks on this box, on this selection box, the layer choices drop-down needs to show. So that's the other trigger that was created. This is the layer, remember, that mimics the drop-down. That does it for part 1. In part 2, I'll show you how to turn this Storyline file into a quiz.